Hello, good afternoon. You're listening to the Midday News. The news is live on Joy 99.7 FM in Accra, Love 99.5 in Kumasi, affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Sun City Radio, Keta, Volta Premiers in Ho, ATL FM, Cape Coast, Radio Max, Takrady, and Reach 104.9 FM is in Tamale. We are live on Twitter Spaces, Facebook live stream, and the My Joy online interactive app. The Midday News is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. In the next 30 minutes, ratings agency Fitch once again downgrades Ghana's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to restricted default after the country missed the grace period to make a coupon payment on one of its Eurobonds. We'll tell you the implications plus what it actually means.
Don't criticize me about what I'm doing, but try also to do something so that you also can get a name, a proper name.
It is important that the likes of Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa must be celebrated for exposing the lies and the rotten system that we are in.
And what you hear, supporters of the opposition National Democratic Congress and not the North Tongue traditional authorities firmly behind its Member of Parliament, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who is in court on contempt charges.
That the party is not deterred at all, that there's nothing that the forces that are against the truth can do to discourage him or to make him feel that what he's doing is not the right cause.
We are going to stand by Okudzeto and fight for the right thing for the people of Ghana.
We'll get you more as the party says. The MP will not be gagged by Secretary to the National Cathedral Board of Trustees, Reverend Kusi Boateng. We have details as the case is adjourned indefinitely. Also, Minister Designate for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs pledges to use all hands-on-deck approach to resolve the many chieftaincy conflicts here in Ghana.
And sometimes face-to-face talk works. Human beings must approach each other with sincerity and honesty and tell the truth and be fair with each other. I've had all the briefings I need.
And we are live as day 2 of that vetting is underway in Parliament. Also a build-up to Nigeria's elections. The Commonwealth Election Observer Mission to Nigeria, led by former South African President Thabo Mbeki, calls for calm ahead of Nigeria's elections set to come off this weekend.
That we will have successful elections, peaceful elections, hopefully. There should be no complaint.
There's more from first-time voters who are optimistic to cast their votes.
Economic-wise, we are down. Politically-wise, we are down. Security, we are down.
We need to have a change.
Well, there's more in Nigeria because thousands continue to queue at the banks as cash shortage hits parts of the country.
To even get 500 naira to eat, if you go and meet POS people, there's no money in POS people's hand.
I don't have the cash. Transfer no they go.
There's more in sports.
Yeah, Ghana will proceed with the hosting rights of the 2023 Africa Games following a decisive meeting held in Ethiopia. We'll tell you more in 20 minutes.
And Mubarak will be back with the details. This is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. My name is Blessed Sogah. Thank you for joining us here on the Midday News. This afternoon, there's more trouble for the Ghanaian economy as ratings agency Fitch once again is downgrading the country's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to restricted default. Fitch says it lowered Ghana's foreign currency issuer default rating after the country missed the grace period to make a coupon payment on one of its Eurobonds. Ghana on Friday missed payment of the $40.6 million coupon payments on its $1 billion 2026 Eurobond as part of the suspension of payments on selected external debt that the government announced back in December. So what does this really mean for the country? Raymond Akwa is head of our research desk. He's joining us with details. Raymond, restricted default is the technical term being used here, but what's the meaning?
So on the rate of scale of ratings by Fitch, this is the last but one position. Default is the lowest you can get.
We're just one step away.
We're just one step away. But in fact, it actually indicates that an issuer, in Fitch rating opinion, experience an unfixed payment default on a bond, like we have been told, or loan or other material financial obligation, but you have not ceased operating. In our case, this was after we missed the grace period to make the payment on the Eurobond you referenced. That is the 40.6 million on the 1 billion 2026 Eurobond. Now, as part of the suspension of payments on selected external debt that the government had announced in December, now the biggest and the real negative effect would have been felt if we're still able to access the international capital markets. But since we've been shut out, it's almost like, we are unable to, investors will not be so worried because they knew that this is where we said we will go. We said we could not make the payment right from the time that we indicated to them in December of last year when we started this conversation about domestic debt exchange program.
So the IMF is the only savior here?
Well, we believe that when we get a deal with the IMF, we will get some credibility. We're able to restore our financial recall. That's why we are doing a domestic debt exchange program. If we're able to come to debt sustainability levels, we will be able to go back to the same international capital markets so that we get the help that we've been getting over the years.
I'm grateful. Raymond Akwa, head of our research desk here at Joy News. But there's more on the economy because this afternoon, the Pensioner Bondholders Forum has also been holding a news conference here in Accra to address issues from the fallout of the domestic debt exchange program. They're demanding the establishment of a committee to monitor government's compliance to its debt obligations.
The forum supports a proposal made by Dr. Duane Adenchi for the establishment of by an executive instrument of a domestic creditor committee made up of 2 representatives each from the Ghana Association of Bankers, Ghana Insurance Association, Ghana Securities Industry Association, Chamber of Pension Trustees of Ghana, and individual bondholders. The committee will serve to represent and protect the common interest of all domestic bondholders and also people holding treasury bonds. It will have the following function, basically 2 functions: to monitor compliance by the government with its debt obligations to domestic creditors, and 2, to offer independent advice to the government on measures and policies that must be undertaken to ensure the continuous ability of the government to meet its debt obligation.
Well, so that's Dr. Edu Anani Enche, is convener for the Pensioner Bondholders Forum. And what you hear there sounds in members of the North Tongue Traditional Council singing at the Law Court Complex. Well, they massed up there together with some supporters of the opposition National Democratic Congress today to show their support for North Tongue Member of Parliament who has been cited for contempt by Reverend Kusi Boateng. The Secretary to the Board of Trustees has issued the MPs, has actually sued the MP for defamation following allegations he has multiple identities. Court correspondent Joseph Akable interacted with some of the supporters earlier today.
That we all know that everywhere you reach Wadi Bebia, the name is all over. That you want to destroy his name, you want to destroy his image. That's the meaning of the song. Do something so that you also get a name. That's the meaning of the song.
Who has distinguished himself as an anchor for the campaign against corruption and the systemic rot that we see. When you pay attention to the things happening, it is important that the likes of Honorable Samoloku Jeto Ablakwa must be celebrated for exposing the lies and the rotten system that we are in. Look at the case before the court, very trivial, such that a man of God or a supposed man of God who on different occasions has used different names, different dates of birth, and different personal data or biodata, such a person will be the one seeking to gag a member of parliament from doing his work. That in 2016 he has a different voter's ID card with different date of birth. 2020, different age, different date of birth. On numerous occasions, his family has celebrated him for different dates of birth.
Allege that our boss, our MP, the leader of North Tongue, which is the MP, is in the court. So the citizens felt that they are supposed to be here to support him. Whatever is going to happen, and they are here to support him.
And some members of the North Tongue Traditional Council there together with leading figures within the National Democratic Congress. But let's get details of day one in court. Court correspondent Joseph Akable is here with me in studio. Joe, Obviously, a lot of support for the North Tongue MP, but how about the case itself?
So the case itself could not progress very much because the lawyers for Reverend Kusi Boateng took the view that once they had not been able to personally serve the MP with the contempt processes, they felt that the case should be adjourned till it's properly served, because as a member of parliament, serving him with documents is a constitutional matter. Interestingly, the lawyers for Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa, led by Thaddeus Sori, said they were willing to waive his rights to formal service because they had heard about it on social media, and so they are ready to argue out the contempt. But the court agreed with Reverend Kusi Boateng's lawyers that this is a matter that should follow due process, and so they adjourned the matter indefinitely, that once the service is done, then hearing can continue.
How about Mr. Okudzeto himself? He's getting some support from key political figures in the NDC too.
He was present in court, flanked by other individuals like the Deputy Minority Leader, Emmanuel Makofibua, and General Secretary of the party, Fifi Fiabikwete, who addressed us shortly after proceedings.
Our distinguished Honorable Member of Parliament, Okudzeto Ablakwa, who has dedicated his life in fighting for the right things done for the country, in fighting for corruption, in ensuring that our constitution is upheld. So today, we should have seen instead, you know who was in court? The man who was fighting for the right thing for Ghana, Okudzeto Ablakwa. And that is why you are all here. That is why you see all the crowd here. The people of Ghana are committed and support all the right things he's fighting for. The minority in parliament stands strongly behind him. And we want to make it clear. Today we went to court, it was obvious that the people who took us to court are running away from their own application. And this is really victory for the people of Ghana. What it is that we are very clear in our mind. We are going to stand by Okudzeto and fight for the right thing for the people of Ghana. Thank you.
Yeah, this is just to indicate that the NDC as a party, from the national through the region, through Ketu, through North Town, is fully behind our comrade, our brother, Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. To say that the party is not deterred at all, that there's nothing that the forces that are against the truth can do to discourage him or to make him feel that what he's doing is not the right cause. We believe the cause he's fighting is the cause of truth, the cause of transparency, and there's nothing that can be done to discourage him.
So that was Fifi Kwete, General Secretary of the NDC, and earlier you heard Emmanuel Makofibua, Deputy Minority Leader.
That's on the side of Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa. How about the individual seeking some claims in court?
Reverend Kusi Boateng, or alias Kwabena Jemfi, was not present in court. We don't have an official reason as to why he was not present, but his legal team, led by Bobby Banson, was present in court.
Joseph Akablaze, our court correspondent, will bring you updates as and when we have them. Let's take you to Parliament now, because President Akufo-Addo's nominee for the office of Minister of State at Local Government Ministry, Obi Amwa, has justified the decision to partner with the Ghana Revenue Authority to collect property rates. Experts have criticized government and the assemblies for failing to employ modern methods to collect what they have said is a massive revenue handle. But some people are not happy with the GRA's partnership, warning it stifles the assemblies. Answering questions at his vetting, the Ekwapim South MP indicated that the arrangement is the best way to effectively collect the property rates.
The GRA should assist the assemblies to be able to collect property rates and a certain sharing ratio agreed upon. And indeed, this House passed the budget. It's one of the revenue streams. But there's a background to it. Indeed, the Minister of Finance had been complaining for some time and the kind of revenue they expect from property rate administration is a bit disappointing. Had this experience of paying property rate properly so-called, are the first to complain that elsewhere you see your road start, you see other facilities provided, and when it comes to property rate, we collect peanuts. Sometimes even for years, no assessment has been made. So this whole arrangement with GRA is to bring in a certain reform and dynamism which should let us reap so much from property rate. And indeed,
well, there's more from Obi Amwa, who has been explaining what exactly his role will be as a Minister of State and if he will not be in conflict with the substantive minister.
This Parliament approved Professor Yanka, this parliament has approved. As to what I'll be doing as a Minister of State, I'm still one step below full minister. So my role will be spelled out as it's been spelled out. I'm already playing a big role in the ministry. I'm sure I'll continue to do that.
That's about day 2 of the vetting, because yesterday Minister Designate for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs Stephen Asamoah Boateng was before the committee and says he will deploy a new tactic to end chieftaincy conflict here in the country. He says he will support and equip the various houses and chiefs, and also to get down there to the affected communities.
Number one is to support and encourage the National House of Chiefs and the Regional House of Chiefs very quickly. Give them the necessary support to step in and address some of them. It can be handled. Some are simple issues, but we've allowed it to metamorphose into huge crisis. But secondly is also to move out of my office. I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't stay in one place. Office is not my place. I move. And sometimes face-to-face talk works. Human beings must approach each other with sincerity and honesty and tell the truth and be fair with each other. I've had all the briefings I need on the disputes, and I believe I'll work towards resolution of a lot of them.
So that's the Minister Designate for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Stephen Asamoah Boateng. Well, there's one more, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, who also says he's opposed to the legalization of same-sex marriages in Ghana. He was responding to a question from MP and member of the committee, Gisela Tete.
What is your position on same-sex marriages being legalized in Ghana? What is your position on same-sex marriages being legalized in Ghana?
Same-sex legalizing in Ghana, I am opposed to it.
And that's the position of Stephen Asamoah Boateng, who's been tipped for that position of chieftaincy and religious affairs. Let's stay on this a while longer, because the NPP presidential hopeful Kwabena Japan says President Akufo-Addo must send a strong moral signal to the populace by downsizing his government. You spoke earlier on the AM show.
We should have 38 ministers.
38 ministers?
Yes. 19.
Including the regional?
No. The regionals will come and add up to 54.
Okay,
and
so
I think
38 plus the 16.
That should make it 54. I don't think you should go beyond 56. Maybe you have 2 non-cabinet ministers, but not quite the number that we have now. That's my personal view. And it's not that it would really save the budget that much,
right,
but it sends a strong signal.
I agree with you.
It sends a very
that is what most
moral signal. And again, even the over-politicization of the state institutions. I'm a very technical person. They are very technical organizations that I think will do with less political interference.
Kwabena Japan is former General Secretary for the NPP and now a presidential hopeful. On now to some other sectors. The illegal miners have taken over close to 1,000 hectares of farmlands at Ofuase in the Asante Echim South municipality, polluting the river Enuru, the only water source in the area. But local authorities say they are overwhelmed and cannot do much in the face of emboldened local citizens and foreigners using Shamfan machines to pollute the river body. But former MP for Asante Echim South and board chair of the Middle Belt Development Authority, Alex Crunchy, who led journalists there, accused local authorities of doing little to stop the distraction. Lava Films' Erastus Asari Donko led a team to Ofuase and now reports.
Residents of Ofuase are mainly farmers, growing cocoa, rice and vegetables. The river Enuru has been a lifeline to agriculture here, but illegal mining has changed the fortunes of the people. The river, our only source of water, is highly polluted, so we have to hire motorbikes to fetch water from the house to the farm to tend to our crops. Over 1,000 hectares of farmland has been turned into pits and gullies. The course of the river Enuru has been changed and the water highly polluted.
So we are very close to the sound of Shamfan sitting on the river, and we are snooping in on them to find out who is there.
We tracked the sound of Shamfan equipment to another part of the Enuru River. Isaiah is not from Ofuasi. He hails from Ashaman in Accra. He and his friends are leaking engine oil and other pollutants into the Enru River. But he remains indifferent.
But
I know all this pollutes the river, what we are doing here. I cannot say I don't feel bad about it.
Well, so you had a report there by Lavavim's Erastus Asari Donko. You're listening to the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM and affiliates across the country. Our top story, ratings agency Fitch once again downgrades Ghana's long-term foreign currency ECR default rating to restricted default after the country missed the grace period to make a coupon payment on one of its euro bonds. But still to come, Commonwealth Election Observer Mission to Nigeria, led by former South African President Thabo Mbeki, calls for calm ahead of Nigeria's election set to come off this weekend.
Economic-wise, we are down. Politically-wise, we are down. Security, we are down.
We need to have a change.
And thanks for staying with us here on the Midday News and Joy 99.7 FM and affiliates across the country. Time now for sports, and the man Mubarak is here with the latest.
Blessed. Now, the impasse between the African Union, the Association of African Olympic Committees, and Association of African Sports Confederations has been resolved peacefully, making it possible for the Africa Games to come off later this year in Ghana. This follows a decisive meeting held in Ethiopia. My colleague Muftar Nabila Abdullahi has the rest of the story.
The resolution of the impasse was facilitated by Ghana's president, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, and His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, a chairperson of the African Union, who sat through the entire resolution process. At the end of it all, the stakeholders smoked a peace pipe and signed a negotiated agreement. Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports, Mustafa Yusuf, signed on behalf of Ghana, whilst Minata Semate Sisuma signed for the African Union. Mustafa Biraf, president of ANOCA, signed for ANOCA, whilst Major General Nazer, president of the Association of Sporting Federations in the continent, signed for the AASC. The impasse between these major stakeholders for the past 1.5 years impacted adversely on Ghana's efforts to host and organize the 13th Africa Games, Accra 2023.
A new date for the start of the Africa Games will be announced in the coming weeks.
And we'll definitely be watching follow-ups from that. Thanks, Mubarak, for joining us with the latest in sports. And let's talk about the most populous nation here in Africa, Nigeria, because the Commonwealth Election Observer Mission to that West African country is this afternoon calling for calm ahead of Nigeria's elections with less than 4 days to go. The high-powered delegation led by former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, urged stakeholders to take measures to ensure that the elections are free and fair. We'll hear from him shortly. Here are some first-time voters who are optimistic to cast their votes.
This is the right time for us to elect a good leader to manage the affairs of this country, because economic-wise we are down, politically-wise we are down, security we are down.
For instance, since morning I've been trying to make withdrawal from the ATM since morning, and this is 3:30 already. I'm exhausted. I think we need to have a change. If policies are going to be made, the masses should be considered when we are making policies.
I feel our vote doesn't count, so I wasn't encouraged to get my voter's card.
I'm just this free-minded Nigerian that lives his life the way it pleases God.
And some first-time voters there in Nigeria. We can now hear from the leader of the Commonwealth Election Observer Mission to Nigeria, Thabo Mbeki.
Its future impacts on itself, but it impacts on the continent as a whole. So it's always very, very important that as the Commonwealth we should come. We come very hopeful and very confident that we will have successful elections, peaceful elections, hopefully. There should be no complaint. And therefore we urge all stakeholders in Nigeria to uphold their commitment to ensure a peaceful and inclusive election in which people of Nigeria are able to freely exercise their right to vote with the fundamental freedoms of expression, of association, of assembly fully respected.
Meanwhile, the country's Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, says that the commission is committed to deliver an incident-free elections.
We are committed to a free and fair process. I want to assure you that INEC is not a political party. We don't have a candidate in the election. The choice of who becomes president or whatever in the forthcoming general election is entirely in the hands of citizens. We are committed to free, fair, credible, inclusive, and verifiable elections.
The police, however, says all who are found wanting before, during and after the elections will be dealt with. Here's Inspector General of Police Usman Al-Khali Baba.
We are to police the election from those who believe that they can behave as adversaries, those who either do not want the election to take place or are all out to sabotage the process. We have also stated in many of our forums that non-quasi-security organizations that are created by either individuals, groups, or state governments are not part of policing the election.
Inspector General of Police in Nigeria, Usman Al-Khali Baba. The country actually continues to face a banknote swap crisis, with many unable to access their cash from the banks. Kayla Megwa is with our partners, Channels TV. She's been breaking down the issues for us.
First of all, there are many people who are unbanked. There's too much cash transaction. There's a lot of money being hoarded. There's speculations about people hoarding all of this money so they can use it to rig election or buy votes during the elections. And then it's also opened up the fact that the banking infrastructure that is necessary to go cashless in Nigeria probably doesn't exist. We are seeing that failure even from the biggest banks. This is my money and I can't get it out.
Kayla Megwa is with our partners, Channels TV in Nigeria. Well, today many continue to queue as tensions rise across the country. Some of them say they have been in queues for days and it is affecting their businesses. But for now, let's move on to some other stories. Africa has had enough water to benefit everyone, yet the most reported cases of scarcity of the priceless commodity is recorded on the continent. This worrying development, according to the Prime Minister of Cote d'Ivoire, remains a major challenge for experts despite several attempts using various innovations. Patrick Jerome therefore believes a more robust and sustainable approach in tackling the issue should be adopted. He was speaking at the opening ceremony of the 21st AFWA Congress and Fecal Sludge Management Conference in Abidjan.
Joy News has reported on a number of cases where some pupils miss school or report late to school because they have to work long hours in search of water. Some teenage girls have also had to forfeit classes when they are menstruating because of lack of sanitary pads and also lack of water to keep them clean during the period. Prime Minister of Cote d'Ivoire, Patrick Archie, who does not think scarcity of safe water should continue to be a problem in Africa, outlined what he called the panacea to getting safe water to all homes ahead of the 2030 declared targeted year. AFWA President Dr. Sylvia Mugisha hammered on the importance of governments focusing on acting on recommendations from such events and not just outlining them in their policies.
There is a simple and yet a powerful Moroccan proverb that says, there is no beauty but the beauty of action. Our actions have the power to change the African water and sanitation sector. We have come here today with a common resolve to make vital discussions, commitments, and take solid actions to make this.
And that's Hannah Odami in Abidjan reporting for us. And that's all we have for you here on the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM and affiliates across the country. Our top story: ratings agency Fitch once again downgrades Ghana's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to restricted default after the country missed the grace period to make a coupon payment on one of its Eurobonds. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. We have stories there for you, including defamation case, serve Ablakwa properly with contempt processes. That's the court directing lawyers of Reverend Kusi Boateng. There's more there at myjoyonline.com for you. I am Blessed Sogah, and next is Living Word with Pastor